Hello and welcome. History is made at the World Trade Organization. Former Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, emerges first woman and first African Director General of the global trade body. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala braces up for reforms at the WTO, says challenges facing the global body are not insurmountable, and promises to break vaccine procurement deadlock. National Security Advisor and the service chiefs meet northern state governors in Kaduna over insecurity in the region as search for peace continues in the aftermath of the recent violence in Oyo State. And Myanmar military moves against anti-coup protesters, pronounces 20-year jail term for anyone guilty of action against the junta. Plus sports, business, and later on international news from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, Lagos State Government retakes full ownership of Lekki Toll Plaza, rules immediate resumption of tolling operations due to the extent of damage done last year.
On sports news tonight, German tactician Jurgen Klopp dismisses rumours that he's ready to quit Liverpool FC after a poor run of results.
And from Abuja, federal government targets 2025 to achieve complete elimination of gas flaring in the country.
History has been made as Nigeria's former Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, becomes the first female and first African to head the World Trade Organization. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala's appointment comes after members of the General Council of the WTO met and agreed by consensus to select her to lead the 164-member trade organization from March the 1st, 2021 to August the 31st, 2025. In a statement released after today's meeting, the chair of the General Council, David Walker, described the moment as very significant for the WTO and congratulated Dr. Okonjo-Iweala on her appointment while formally welcoming her to the General Council meeting. He adds, Dr. Ngozi, on behalf of all members, I wish to sincerely thank you for your graciousness in these exceptional months and for your patience. We look forward to collaborating closely with you, Dr. Ngozi, and I'm certain that all members will work with you constructively during your tenure as Director General to shape the future of this organization. The process for selecting a new leader for the WTO was triggered on May the 14th, when the former Director General, Mr. Roberto Azevedo, informed members he'd be stepping down from his post 1 year before the end of his tenure. He subsequently left office on August the 31st, 2020. In her acceptance speech, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala emphasized that change in leadership in the WTO would open the organization to much-needed reforms. And concerning challenges facing the organization, she described them as numerous and tricky, but not insurmountable.
It has been a long and tough road, full of uncertainty. But now, it's the dawn of a new day, and the real work can begin. Today, WTO members are making history. For the first time in the 73 years of GATT and WTO, you are selecting a woman and an African as Director General. This is groundbreaking and positive. I'm grateful for the trust you have in me, not just as a woman and an African, but also in my knowledge, experience, and as some of you have said, courage and passion to work with you to undertake the wide-ranging reforms the WTO needs to reposition itself for the future. The challenges facing the WTO are numerous and tricky, but they are not insurmountable. There is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel if we work together in a transparent manner that builds trust, builds bridges, diffuses political tensions, and encourages convergence. The pandemic and its economic fallout have highlighted the interdependence of countries, the importance of multilateralism, and the need to strengthen collaboration to achieve fair and balanced trade agreements that provide opportunities for all WTO members, particularly for the least developed countries and small island states.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has congratulated Dr. Okonjo-Iweala on her emergence as Director General of the WTO, describing her appointment as one that brings joy and honor to the country. In a statement by the presidential spokesman Garba Shehu, the president says he believes her track record of integrity, diligence and passion for development will continue to yield positive results and rewards to mankind. President Buhari also affirms that Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, who over the years set major records of economic reforms in Nigeria as Minister of Finance and later Minister of Foreign Affairs, will excel in her new position and validate the global mandate of repositioning and strengthening the multilateral institution for the greater good of all. For Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, it's been a long and indeed a bumpy ride to victory, from when she was first sharing her vision for the global body to her eventual confirmation. Our next report looks at Dr. Okonjo-Iweala's emergence as the first female and first African to head the global trade body.
It wasn't an easy road for Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, but her passion and recognition of the importance of trade for the 21st century, for prosperity, for resilience and sustainable growth kept her going.
Trade is important for the 21st century, is important for prosperity, and is important for resilience, is important for sustainable growth. And the WTO is right at the heart of this. Therefore, we want to rejuvenate and reform the WTO to be the organization that it needs to be for the 21st century.
The multilateral trading system and the WTO are in place to serve all members, and for Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, building a WTO that will ensure fair, open, transparent, predictable and stable trade is her mandate.
I would be very keen to make sure that instruments like Aid for Trade, which involves technical assistance, capacity building, and working with other organizations such as the World Bank, the regional development banks, to be able to deliver to countries what they need to improve investments within their borders so that they can process their goods more, create more jobs, and have more to trade.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to withdraw the U.S. from the World Trade Organization, claiming it treats his country unfairly. But here is what Dr. Okonjo-Iweala had to say to the new U.S. administration.
It's not the time now to leave a WTO that matters. We need an institution that can promote a rules-based system. Remember the trade wars, I would say to him, of the past? We don't want that. We want peace and security and stability. That is why the WTO is needed, with its ability to arbitrate disputes within members. So don't leave now. Let's try to fix what needs fixing. And if we didn't have the WTO, we would have to invent it.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And then events took a different turn, with the Biden administration declaring its strong support for Dr. Okonjo-Iweala to serve as the World Trade Organization's next Director General, after South Korean Trade Minister Yoon Myung-hee withdrew her bid for the position. As the coronavirus ravages the whole world and vaccines now on the horizon, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala says she will ensure there are no barriers to availability of the vaccine.
I would have a very strong collaboration with the Tools Accelerator, which has the WHO, the CEPI, Gavi, to work towards this, to make sure that there are no barriers, no restrictions on the availability of these vaccines, whilst respecting the intellectual property rights of those who have manufactured the vaccines. The world should be able to come to the point where the medicines mechanisms are put in place to also make those vaccines available. And the World Trading System should be a facilitator of that.
For Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, her emergence as the DG of WTO is a sign not only to women and girls in Nigeria, but women and girls worldwide, that the world is ready for women to fly as much as their wings can take them. Chimeze Obi Iwago, Channels Television News.
And apart from being Nigeria's two-time finance minister and taking a shot at the presidency of the World Bank in 2012, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala has had a meritorious career spanning over 4 decades. We examine her profile in this next report.
Born on June 13, 1954 in Ogwashuku, Delta State, Nigeria, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala had her early education in Nigeria before proceeding to Harvard University in the United States, graduating magna cum laude with an AB in economics in 1976. In 1981, she earned her PhD in regional economics and development from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. She then went on to have a 25-year career at the World Bank as development economist, rising to become the managing director in 2007 to 2011. In between her stay at the World Bank, she served as Nigeria's finance minister twice, first in 1999 and later in 2011. During her first term as Minister of Finance under President Olusegun Obasanjo, she spearheaded negotiations with the Paris Club that led to the wiping out of $30 billion of Nigeria's debt, including the outright cancellation of $18 billion. During her second coming as Finance Minister, some of her achievements include strengthening of Nigeria's public financial systems and stimulating the housing sector with the establishment of the Nigerian Mortgage Refinance Corporation. After leaving government, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala became a member of the International Commission on Financing Global Education Opportunity. She was also named as a board member of online group Twitter. Also in 2020, she was appointed by the African Union as Special Envoy to solicit international support to help the continent deal with economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was therefore not surprising to many when her name cropped up as a candidate for the post of Director General of the global trade body, the World Trade Organization. The Nigerian president backed her nomination, citing her impressive track record. From an initial list of 8 candidates, she made it to the election's final round, pitched against South Korea's Trade Minister Yoon Myung-hee, thereby setting the stage for the emergence of the first female head of the global body. On the home front, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala is married to Dr. Ikemba Iweala, a neurosurgeon, and they are blessed with 4 children and grandchildren.
We'll have more on Dr. Okonjo-Iweala's leadership of the WTO shortly, but let's take a quick look at security now, where 4 persons have been killed in the Bassa local government area of Plateau State. That attack was carried out on Sunday night on 2 communities in that district, which left houses and food barns burned. Meanwhile, Governor Simon Lalong has ordered security agencies to immediately put a stop to the recurring killings in the communities in Bassa Council. In a statement, the governor directed the State Peace Building Agency to visit the area and find the root cause of the killings. Governor Lalong added that all those involved in the criminal act should be arrested and prosecuted, while the machinery for dialogue, reconciliation and confidence building should be pursued by the agency with the support of the newly constituted Interfaith Council. As part of efforts to ensure there's lasting peace in the Shasha area of Ibadan, Oyo State, 4 northern governors today visited the state. They visited the governor, Seyi Makinde, at the government house in Ibadan. The governors, Bello Matawale of Zamfara, Abubakar Bagudu of Kebbi, Abdullahi Ganduje of Kano, and Abubakar Bello of Niger held a closed-door meeting with Governor Makinde for several hours. Shasha has been in the news over the past few days over a clash between 2 persons in the market which claimed 1 life. The governor's visit is believed to be part of efforts to bring peace across the board and prevent reprisals in other parts of the country. And to bring an end to insecurity in Oyo State, the Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, has ordered the immediate deployment of police intervention and stabilization forces to the state. The intervention force is charged with the responsibility of reinforcing and stabilizing security in the state, preventing further breakdown of law and order, protecting lives and property, and ultimately enhancing public safety. The Deputy Inspector General of Police, David Folawiyo, is expected to mobilize all relevant stakeholders towards achieving this aim. In part two, after the break, we have more on the emergence of Dr. Okonjo-Iweala as the Director General of the WTO, and we'll have a development economist, Professor Ken Ife, to examine the significance of this. That's in a moment. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. History is made at the World Trade Organization. Former Minister of Finance Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala emerges first woman and first African Director General of the global trade body. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala braces up for reforms of the WTO, says challenges facing the global body are not insurmountable, and promises to break vaccine procurement deadlock. National Security Advisor and service chiefs meet northern state governors in Kaduna over insecurity in the region as search for peace continues in the aftermath of recent violence in Ibadan. 4 northern governors visit Oyo State. And Myanmar military moves against anti-coup protesters, pronounces 20-year jail term for anyone guilty of action against the military. Against the backdrop of the rising insecurity in the Northwest Zone and the recent conflict in the Southwest, governors of the northern states today held a crucial security meeting with the newly appointed service chiefs and traditional rulers in Kaduna. During the meeting, the National Security Advisor, Babagana Monguno, said that the federal government is not sleeping in terms of security and will do everything possible to ensure the protection of lives and property of citizens. He also warns Nigerians against playing into the hands of a few criminal elements who wish to stoke ethnic tension and cause crisis in the country. The meeting was also attended by governors of the Northwest states, as well as the Plateau State Governor and chairman of the Northern Governors Forum, among others.
It is a meeting of governors of the 7 Northwest states and the newly appointed service chiefs. The National Security Advisor, Babagana Monguno, the Chiefs of Defense, Army and Air Staff, as well as the Chairman of the Northern Governors Forum and Governor of Plateau State are present at the Arawa House in Kaduna State, venue of the meeting. Traditional rulers and religious leaders, among other important personalities from the zone, are also in attendance.
The Chief of Army Staff is also here.
The agenda of this meeting, which is organized by the Office of the NSA, is to find lasting solutions to the lingering security challenges confronting the Northwest Zone and the recent ethnic crisis in the Southwest Zone. The National Security Advisor kickstarts the session by highlighting the efforts being made by the federal government and the armed forces to tackle the security challenges, while the defense chief gives assurance of a new security architecture for the country.
Redoubling its commitment to secure the lives of people, but you must understand that government is only one leg of the tripod. That is why we have decided to work on a whole of government approach in combination with a whole of society approach to achieve a whole of nation results.
We are not resting on our oars. We have come to give you assurance that some reorganizations are being undertaken currently that will help to change the tide of insecurity in this part of the country.
For the host governor, Nasir El-Rufai, and his Katsina State counterpart, Aminu Masari, the security meeting is crucial, and they express optimism in the capability of the newly appointed service chiefs to bring about a positive change.
We need
to support our military, our police and security agencies, not only with prayers, but with calls for them to be better equipped, to be greater in numbers, so that these problems can be crushed once and for all.
We must go back to our communities, build community relations, restore what was there before. Because 10 years ago, the situation was not as bad as it is today.
Have such headlines.
The recent ethnic conflict in the Southwest Zone also comes to light during the meeting, with religious and traditional rulers expressing concern on the dangers such portends.
I'm calling on all clergy, Muslims and Christians. This is the time for you to come out and forget any differences and any rancor between us. Please go into your churches, go into your mosques. Reach out to people in the rural areas. Reach out to them and tell them, look, peace is possible in Nigeria and Nigeria's prosperity is possible, and we have seen the light at the end of the tunnel.
This is not the time to escalate the situation, but it's time, to reunite as a people so that we can have one indivisible nation as we used to have.
This is the first meeting the service chiefs are having with governors of a particular zone in the country since their appointment. More of today's dialogue are expected in the coming days as the federal government delegation visits other parts of the country to brainstorm on how to end insecurity in Nigeria.
From security matters, let's now get a bit of perspective on the appointment of Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as the DG of the WTO. Joining us now to discuss this further is a development economist, Professor Ken Ife. Thanks a lot, Professor, for joining us on the News at 10.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, there are many firsts today, first female, first African, first Nigerian. Just how significant is this appointment for Nigeria? Let's start by getting that reaction.
Oh, extremely important, not just for Nigeria, but for Africa, ECOWAS, and in fact, black people all over the world, they are celebrating this. And I think it's square peg in a square hole. And I'll tell you something, I've been listening to your commentaries on her. Something that is missing is that Ngozi is an institution builder. You know, in the 2005, when she negotiated the write-down of the $30 billion we were owing, and the Paris Club forgiveness, all that stuff, she actually set up the Debt Management Office and then masterminded the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007, which created even the FRC. And that document guides up to today our fiscal responsibility, fiscal transparency, accountability, and prudence in public finance management. And you can even see that as she's just resuming, she has actually hit the ground running in WTO with her activities in Gavi, in making sure that the real problem, number one problem, priority for WTO today is free flow of vaccines. She has been part of the negotiation for this vaccine. At least 20% of the developing countries are guaranteed that we're going to get it. And then we can now go and look for the remaining 30% of the population. So that is just to tell you just how skilled that she is in institution building. And also she brings a lot of traits into this. I'm glad that there was the showdown with the Trump administration, and we ended up with a triumph of multilateralism over bilateral philosophy of American first, which Trump was pushing. But again, that actually brought out the real reason why she has to focus on the biggest challenges facing WTO: investment, intellectual property rights protection, the trade imbalance, and then, of course, the negotiations. Where are the trade negotiations, the tariff negotiations, trade and services? There are a lot of things, and she's aware of the enormity of these challenges facing her today. Not least, of course, the women in cross-border trade and MSMEs, and all of these are challenges that are facing her, and Africa is going to benefit a lot more from her, to be honest. We're getting a voice, and then our AFCTA has a chance to succeed.
Listening to what she was saying and what you're saying about her hitting the ground, she says she's coming to the organization with a clear set of eyes. What do you think she means by that? Well,
the thing is, she is fully aware, because she knows that, the skills that she has on negotiating, and also prior experience in the World Bank of organizing groups of nations and blocks, regional blocks. She's got that in front of her. And you know, the thing is this. From 1995, WTO was formed. It's a rules-based organization. It's a membership organization. It goes by, the decision-making process is clumsy because it's by consensus. So there's no veto. And it requires a lot of skill to get traction on any agreement. And there are many agreements. There are so many reforms that she's going to have to deliver in the next few years to ensure that the institution lives up to their expectation. If America is threatening to leave, it just tells you just how badly they feel about not getting enough justice. You had someone like Trump say that equated the appellate body in the decision-making in the appeal, they have a dispute resolution mechanism and an appellate body. He characterized that appellate body as what you call, he said is a judicial, we call them judicial activists. That's how he described them. And then, of course, because the confidence is not there, he had to invoke American trade law and then unilaterally imposed sanction on China, triggering a trade war, and then raise the tariff. So all of those actions are some of the things that she's going to have to work to stop. Trade protectionism. You saw what happened at the onset of the COVID. Many countries stopped exporting APIs, exporting food, and then there was also argument about vaccine. Are you going to let So all of those are big-time challenges that she has to face. She has to reform the WTO decision-making mechanism, the governance machinery, and then all of the outstanding negotiations. Let me give you an example. We have a trade facilitation agreement that has been signed. 54 African members, we've all signed. We didn't sign because we are ready for the international trade. We just signed hoping that we will benefit more from the capacity building that was promised on strengthening institutional capacity, technical capacity, and organizational capacity. But some of those are still to come. And you see her saying that she's calling on World Bank and order to bring more resources. That's exactly what she's alluding to. But I have to tell you, one that is good news to women is women are suffering on cross-border trade. You go to cross-border trade, you see where people are staying 2 days, 3 days, because in the nature of our informal trade is that women are overrepresented. And they go with their goods and they are kept in the border for 2 or 3 days. And if you look at statistics on health...
Yes, I'm afraid I'll probably have to come in there.
More HIV,
indeed, Prof. The task before her is Herculean, and we watch her in the coming days. Thank you so much, development economist Professor Kenny Faye, for joining us on the News at 10. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And when the News at 10 returns, Lagos State Government retakes full ownership of Lekki Toll Plaza, rules out immediate resumption of tolling operations due to damage done to the facility. That's on Business News. Please join us again. Welcome back to the News at 10. Let's cross over to Abuja, and here's Terry Ikumi. Terry.
Hello, Ijeman. Welcome to the nation's capital. Nigeria is on course to achieving complete elimination of gas flaring by 2025, according to the Minister of State for Petroleum, Timipre Silva. Mr. Silva says there is a global consensus on the elimination of gas flaring by 2025, and Nigeria has successfully reduced that to a minimal 8%. He was speaking at the public hearing of the House of Representatives on gas resources. The Minister of Petroleum for State and the Group Managing Director of the NNPC are among those in attendance at the public hearing of the Joint House Committee on Gas Resources, Environment and Climate Change.
Committee on Judiciary.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, who is represented by the Chairman, House Committee on Judiciary, promises that the 9th House of Representatives will resolve the policy disagreements and other issues that have mitigated against the effective utilization of gas resources.
We have not managed to end the environmental damage that results from gas flaring, and we are still deprived of the economic benefit of full utilization of gas resources in our country. In this 9th House of Representatives, we intend to do everything we can to change this narrative.
The hearing is also to investigate the devastation caused by gas flaring and the level of regulatory compliance by multinationals in the petroleum upstream sector.
At current estimate by PricewaterhouseCoopers, Nigeria loses over $750 million in annual revenue from the flared gas.
The Ministry of Petroleum is especially committed to the elimination of gas flaring by 2025. Today, we have actually reduced gas flaring significantly to a very minimal level of 8%.
We have what we call the Kwara cluster of flare gas. It makes about 200 million scoop of gas the day of flare. By the end of March, this will vanish because we are going to end connecting all the lines that will take this into a trunk line, and automatically it goes away.
The local communities who are directly affected by gas flaring are also represented.
In our own presentation in the PI bill, we made it clear that 10% equity shareholding will guarantee the critical assets. We are not talking of your gains alone, but we should be partners in progress. By having a partner in progress, the critical assets will be secured. Oil companies are talking of their gain and losses. You are not considering the pain of the host communities.
The negative environmental, economic and health implications of gas flaring is the reason why countries are condemning the process and calling for stringent measures to put a stop to it. As the All Progressives Congress continues its membership registration and revalidation, it does appear that for the Kwara State chapter of the party, it's one crisis at a time. This is because the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, who had his membership revalidation today at his Oro ward, is calling for the immediate cancellation of the exercise in the state for not meeting laid-down guidelines. According to him, the party needs to conduct a fresh exercise in the state that will enjoy the confidence of all members.
With the stipulated guidelines. After the botched attempt to have a meeting of stakeholders due to orchestrated violence, registration officials failed to consult further with all stakeholders. Also, it's important to note that the recruitment of officials for the registration has been a one-sided affair, and indications are that the handpicked officials are under strict orders, in quote from above, as to how to carry out the exercise.
The party's chairman in the state, Alhaji Abdullahi Samari, has however dismissed the minister's call, insisting that the exercise was carried out in line with the party's guidelines. He says there are avenues for those with grievances to register such, rather than calling for an outright cancellation.
The exercise has been peaceful and successfully conducted in line with the guidelines given to us. In fact, most of the booklets have been finished up now. That is the first 100. And the national said, once they are used up, we can ask for additional, which we are trying to do now. So if the exercise has not been peaceful and has not been successful, we wouldn't have used up all those booklets. So what he's saying is not true. Two, he came in and he registered. We saw it. It was done peacefully. If the materials were not there, how was he able to register? So it's not true. What he said is not true. The national, as well as those who are handling it in the state, they've done a marvelous job to the satisfaction of all and sundry. Yes, there could be one or two people, probably the way they wanted it is not going that way, but they are in the insignificant minority. Even the minister himself made submissions of names to be invited into that meeting. So if he's now claiming that certain people were excluded, that is not true.
Well, that's it from Abuja. Back to Lagos now, where Ann Wildo is standing by with business news.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Terry. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Lekki Concession Company has held a second press conference in 4 days, insisting the Lagos State government owns the toll plaza and the need to evaluate the destruction on the infrastructure and present a situation report to its local and foreign lenders. And this is coming after the arrest and release of protesters at the Lekki Toll Gate over the weekend, which occurred as a fallout of the repossession order granted by the Lagos Judicial Panel to the Lekki Concession Company. Meanwhile, the LCC says resumption of tolling at the Lekki Toll Gate could take some time due to the extent of damage done to the plaza. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry has welcomed the appointment of Dr. Okonjo-Iweala as the new Director General of the World Trade Organization. In a statement released today, the Director General of the LCCI, Mr. Muda Yusuf, says her emergence is coming at a time when the global trading system is facing numerous challenges amid the coronavirus pandemic, as well as trust and credibility concerns among the members. However, Mr. Yusuf points out that there is a need to manage expectations around the outcome of her appointment for Nigeria's economy due to the numerous productivity and competitiveness issues facing the country. He also says that these factors will determine the benefits that will accrue to the economy from the global trade body. And let's head to the stock market, where equities began the third week in February on a positive note, within 21.2 billion naira, as it gained that amount at the close of trading today amid renewed trust from key investors. Let's hear more from Ilijon Lekwa.
Thank you so much and welcome to the Stock Market Reports. The market is on the path to recovery with, though not significant, but appreciable movement. And so after 2 straight weeks, the bull is back. Well, over 206 million shares worth about 2.16 billion naira were traded in over 4,000 deals, with the all-share index at 40,573, an increase of 0.33%. The credit of this movement goes majorly to the banking stocks led by Zenith Bank, which traded 2.15 million. The oil and gas sector also did well, with an increase of 5.35%, and this was due to 10% increase on Zeplat. Now, Zenith Bank's performance was also evident on the top trade leads. Also, there was a Mutual Benefit and UAC Property. They also made the list. In all, there were 31 gainers and 13 losers, implying that investors are beginning to take advantage of the lower price stocks. That's the stock market report. Back to you.
Thank you, Ini. Let's see how others closed today. And that's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Ijoma.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Anne. Still ahead on the news at 10, Myanmar military moves against anti-coup protesters, pronounces 20-year jail term for anyone guilty of action against the military. So join us again. Welcome back. 20 years imprisonment now. That's how far Myanmar's military leaders are willing to go to quell protests across the country. Here's Salman Pusey with more.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Myanmar's military has warned protesters across the country that they could face up to 20 years in prison. Despite the warning, demonstrators in Myanmar's largest city of Yangon surrounded the headquarters of detained leader Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy earlier. There have been reports of live bullets being used and images on social media of plainclothed police officers carrying high-powered weapons, raising fears of a brutal crackdown on demonstrators. The ruling military, who arrested Aung San Suu Kyi and other leaders 2 weeks ago, are also regularly shutting down access to the internet and telecommunications, making it near impossible for people to communicate. Ms. Suu Kyi's lawyer, seen here arriving at court earlier, said she will be detained for a further 2 days before being tried via video link at a court in the capital, Naypyidaw, on Wednesday. President Joe Biden is expected to quickly press for passing his $1.9 trillion stimulus bill as Trump's impeachment trial ended.
Making sure we give them enough capacity to deal with the virus.
Biden's team is pushing lawmakers for quick action when senators return from a week-long recess after the trial and acquittal of the former president.
Senators not to convict Donald Trump, despite the overwhelming evidence.
House committees have already been debating parts of the coronavirus relief legislation that Mr. Biden calls the American Rescue Plan.
I think the federal government has a major role to play here.
The stimulus bill is part of a bigger agenda that includes infrastructure, immigration, criminal justice reform, climate change and healthcare. Investigators from the World Health Organization have discovered signs that the outbreak in Wuhan in December 2019 was much more widespread than previously thought. The team that arrived in China to investigate the origins of the pandemic has found several signs of a more wide-ranging spread, including establishing for the first time that there had been over a dozen strains of the virus in Wuhan already in December. The World Health Organization team is now seeking access to hundreds of blood samples of patients from the early phase of the outbreak in the city. Newspapers, magazines and TV shows around the world have been covering the news that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry are expecting their second child. Most of the coverage has been favourable and happy in tone, with the announcement coming on Valentine's Day, the same day Diana revealed she was pregnant with Harry. But some UK media accused the couple of hypocrisy after they won a court case last week which ruled that Meghan's privacy had been breached by the press. The announcement on Sunday night was accompanied by a black and white photograph of Meghan lying on the grass with Harry barefoot. The pair stepped back from royal duties in January last year and moved with their first son Archie to Southern California. South Africa's former president Jacob Zuma has not shown up for an inquiry into corruption during his time in office.
Mr. Zuma is guilty of contempt of court.
Despite the country's top court ordering him to appear, Mr. Zuma has said through his lawyers that he would not attend this week.
Our client will not be appearing before the Commission on 15 to 19 February 2021.
The inquiry is probing allegations of high-level graft during Zuma's 9 years in power from 2009 to 2018. The former president has denied any wrongdoing. A plane carrying Zimbabwe's first coronavirus vaccines has arrived in the country. The shipment of 200,000 doses has been donated by China, and a further 600,000 doses are set to arrive in early March. Zimbabwe has set aside $100 million for vaccine procurement and is looking to buy 20 million doses in efforts to immunize about 60% of its population.
The vaccine also offers the possibility that our people...
Vice President Constantino Chiwenga, head of the delegation receiving the vaccines, has said frontline health workers would be the first to be vaccinated. Thousands of Haitians have rallied in the streets of the capital Port-au-Prince to demand an end to President Jovenel Moïse's term in office. The Caribbean nation has been plunged into turmoil amid a dispute between Moïse's government and the opposition over when the president's term is supposed to end. Protests have been largely peaceful, although images show barricades set on fire and police firing tear gas and rubber bullets. And finally, a South African hotel has started to use robots to adhere to strict COVID-19 protocols.
Welcome to Hotel Sky.
The Hotel Sky in Johannesburg has launched the use of automated attendants. The robots, called Lexi, Mika and Ariel, can deliver room service, provide travel information and drag up to 300 kilograms of luggage from the lobby to the rooms. If the hotel receives a guest at high risk from severe COVID-19 symptoms, the robots could be deployed instead of people as precaution. This is the first time that robots are being employed in a hotel in Africa. And that's your international news around the world in 5. And now back to the Chance Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. World number 2 Rafa Nadal will take on Stefanos Tsitsipas in the quarterfinals of the Australian Open on Wednesday after the Greek star received a walkover from Matteo Berrettini in the 4th round. Nadal is bidding to become the first man in the Open era to win every Grand Slam twice. Nigeria's Super Falcons have arrived in Turkey ahead of the Invitational Tournament. Led by coach Randy Waldrum, the Falcons, including captain Aziza Toshola, have already settled at the Emir Hotels with 20 players after 4 foreign-based players withdrew from the squad, while Ramat Abdul Karim, a Turkey-based player, was called up. Liverpool FC manager Jurgen Klopp says he doesn't need a break from football and plans to turn things around for the club. Some reports on social media claim the club could walk away from the club after the Leicester City defeat in the EPL, but the 53-year-old tactician dismissed the suggestion that he might resign. And that's a wrap in sports news. It's back to you, Joe.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. And the main news again. History was made today at the World Trade Organization as former Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, was announced as Director General of the WTO, making her the first woman and first African to occupy the position. Also today, 4 northern governors visited Oyo State in the aftermath of the Shasha violence. Governor Makinde to constitute a judicial panel of inquiry into the incident. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Konyato. Good night.